There's something about the way young children see the world, something unfiltered, innocent, and sometimes downright chilling. Today's story comes from John, a father from Dayton, Ohio, who had what started as a completely ordinary afternoon. He was driving with his 3-year-old son, Michael, strapped into the back seat, just a quick trip through town, nothing special. As they cruised down a familiar road, they passed a small cemetery. Not the spooky, gothic kind from the movies. This one was simple. Just rows of small plaques and a few flower arrangements. More like a garden than a graveyard. Michael had been singing a little song to himself, happily humming away. But then he stopped. Mid-note, silence. John glanced in the rearview mirror, and that's when he noticed Michael staring, pointing out the window toward the cemetery. And then his son said it. "Look at all those people." John, confused, slowed the car and scanned the area. But the cemetery was completely empty. Not a soul in sight. He asked, "What people?" Michael answered, still gazing out the window. "All those people over there. There sure are a lot of grandmas." John felt a shiver creep up his spine. He tried to keep his voice calm and asked, "What are they doing?" Michael replied softly, "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass." John didn't wait to ask more questions. He hit the gas and got out of there. But that wasn't the end of it. Later that day, while Michael was quietly watching TV, he turned to John with a strange expression on his face and said, "You know, they weren't alive." John, startled, asked, "Who?" Michael responded, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Those people we saw, they were all paused." John still doesn't know what to make of the moment. Was it a child's wild imagination or something else? Sometimes, the most unsettling things don't come from the shadows or the unknown. They come from the mouths of those who've only just begun to speak. For most kids, a birthday gift is a source of joy. For Martin, it may have been the start of a haunting. Back in the 90s, Martin was obsessed with ventriloquists, especially Edgar Bergen and his wooden sidekick, Charlie McCarthy. So when his father stumbled across an old ventriloquist dummy in a little magic shop outside Santa Rosa, California, it felt like fate. At the register, the cashier looked up and said something strange. "You know, when you put your hand inside the doll, he's going to come alive." He laughed, paid, and brought the dummy home. Martin was thrilled. He adored the doll. But the joy didn't last. Before long, she noticed something wrong. The doll's face would change. Its plastic, immovable features seemed to smile wider or differently when no one was watching. The family, already uneasy, began locking it away each night in a cupboard. And then came the footsteps. One night, the family was jolted awake by the sound of tiny footsteps in the living room. They checked. No dog, no people, just the doll sitting upright on the couch. They never left it there. Soon, everyone in the house heard voices, sometimes their own names, being whispered, along with footsteps and unease thick in the air. The family decided it had to go. They tried burning it. The doll wouldn't burn. They tried cutting it. no success. Finally, they threw it in the trash. But when Martin's father went to retrieve the empty bin, the doll was inside it. In a final act of desperation, the family dug a hole in the backyard, dropped the doll in, and poured cement over it. They moved away years ago, but Martin says they still talk about it, still wonder if the doll is still down there, still waiting, and if one day it will come looking for them. It was the 90s in Portland, Oregon, a quiet, overcast afternoon like so many others. An 18-year-old named Julie was behind the wheel, heading out of the city to meet some friends. The highway stretched ahead of her, lined with trees and flanked by the familiar hum of urban life, giving way to something more still. As Julie rolled to a slow crawl in unexpected traffic, it became clear something was wrong. The red brake lights lit up the road like a warning, one that felt too heavy for just rush hour. And then she saw it, the twisted wreckage of a brutal car crash. Emergency crews were on the scene, and Julie's heart sank as she realized someone hadn't made it. Moments after passing the accident site, Julie says she suddenly wasn't alone in the car. "There was a woman sitting in my passenger seat," she recounted. Julie describes the woman as dressed in work clothes, ordinary enough. But the look on her face? Pure panic, confusion. She wasn't just frightened, she was disoriented, as if she'd woken up in a stranger's life. She looked like somebody who had just suddenly ended up in someone else's car, Julie remembered. The woman demanded to know where she was, who Julie was, how she got there. There was something otherworldly about her presence, something unfinished. Julie took a breath, steadied her voice, and said the only thing that made sense in that moment. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. My name is Julie, and I'm here to help." She explained, gently, that there had been an accident, and somehow this woman had ended up with her. The woman grew quiet, her eyes wide. Her expression slowly changed from fear to peace. And just then, as the road opened into a clearing and sunlight poured through the trees, Julie encouraged her to look. The woman turned her head toward the light and vanished. Julie was stunned. She pulled her car over, shaking, tears blurring her vision. Did she just imagine the whole thing? Days passed. The memory stayed with her like a shadow. Then, while watching the evening news, everything changed. A report came on about a tragic highway accident. A trucker had been injured, and the woman involved didn't survive. And there, on the screen, was her face. The same face Julie had seen in the passenger seat of her car. "It was unbelievable," she later said. "It was too much. Sometimes the veil between life and death seems paper thin, and in rare, inexplicable moments, maybe someone just needs a little help finding their way through. Some places are just different. You feel it in the air before you even step inside. A pressure, a silence, a sense that you're not entirely alone." And for over a century, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, has been one of those places. Originally built as a luxury escape for the elite tucked high in the Colorado Rockies. The Stanley was meant to offer peace, solitude, and clean mountain air. But as time wore on, its walls grew quieter. The guests stopped coming. By the 70s, the Grand Hotel had slipped into near abandonment. That is, until one night changed everything. In April of 2016, one curious traveler, Henry from Texas, decided to see it for himself. Henry didn't go in search of ghosts. He just wanted to experience the atmosphere and snap some photos. After a quiet dinner, he wandered the halls with his camera, eventually arriving at the hotel's iconic staircase. He waited until the area was completely empty and took a single photo. Later that night, things took a strange turn. Henry suddenly felt violently ill. Chills, shivers, a fever out of nowhere. Something felt wrong. His travel companion urged him to go to the hospital, but he refused. The next day, on his way home, Henry began flipping through the photos on his phone, and then he saw it. The staircase, the one he knew had been empty, was not empty at all. There was a figure in the photo, a woman in period dress, standing there, as if she had always been there, except no one had been there. Tucked away in the heart of Old Town San Diego, the Whaley House has been dubbed America's most haunted home. And for good reason. It's not just the creaking floors or eerie silence that unsettles visitors. It's the overwhelming sense that someone is still there. The house dates back to 1856, built by Thomas Whaley, a New Yorker who came west chasing fortune during the gold rush. He built his dream home on top of what used to be San Diego's public gallows, the site of numerous executions. One of the most infamous? A man named Yankee Jim Robinson, hanged for stealing a boat. Years later, Thomas Whaley reported hearing something in his home, heavy boots stomping up and down the stairs when no one was there, and sometimes a man's guttural voice grunting from the shadows. He believed it was Yankee Jim. After Whaley's death, people say he never left either. Visitors have reported smelling his cigar smoke. Others claim to have seen him standing silently at the top of the stairs, looking down. Then there's the lavender suddenly in the air. That's said to be the perfume of Anna Whaley, his wife. Victor, the current operations manager at the Whaley House and Museum, has heard it all. One night, during a paranormal investigation, an EVP recorder was placed in an empty room. A simple question was asked: "Are you happy that we're here with you tonight?" And when the tape was played back, a voice answered. One word: no. So, if there's no such thing as ghosts, what's crying in the dark? What said no? Some houses hold history, others hold on to it. Subscribe for more horror with Mrs. Morbid, because true horror lives here.